Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me and my very special guest, four-time Tony Award-winning director, Jerry Zaks. Hi, Jerry. How are you?
Good, Richard. How are you? Nice to see your face.
Well, this is the new now. It's thrilling to see you, too. First of all, Jerry, how are you and where are you coming from?
I'm I'm miserable. No, I'm not. I'm alive and I'm functioning, and I'm just out of town in a little town called Bellport, and trying not to get too blue about Mrs. Doubtfire and the Music Man. It all happened so suddenly. But no, I'm fine, and I'm nothing but grateful. I just miss my actors.
Yeah, I was going to say to you because, Broadway shut down on March 12th and Mrs. Doubtfire had just started previews just a few days before because I had some of your cast on. I had Rob McClure, I had a few of your cast members on. And, that must have been so strange for all of you because, you go from rehearsals to tech to previews to changes. You're on this train to opening night and all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from you. What was March 12th like for you, Jerry? Like, how did you find out and where were you that day?
Oh, the way you described it, first of all, is perfect. I can tell you exactly. I was on stage with Rob McClure, Jen Gambatese, and we were restaging a big number that Jen has in Act Two called Let Go. And I was trying something completely new and different because I wasn't happy with the way it was going in the body of the show. And so we found it. I came in, we worked on it, we rehearsed it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And it was going to go in that night when Kevin and I and the other people on the creative team had a meeting. And then he addressed the company and basically said, we have to go home. It was awful. And I mean, on a larger scale, when we're talking about people getting sick and dying, it's not even in that league. But to people who've spent many years doing what they love, to be told you have to stop really sucked. So, but we try to stay in touch. We're hopeful that we'll be back, but it was, that was that day.
Were you able to process the whole thing right away? Because everybody who I've spoken to were numb for a week or so of just like, you're told to go away, stay at home. Days were blending into other days before people could add structure back into their life. Were you able to structure things right away with everything you had on your plate?
It was awful. Again, there was some denial, but no, I take that back. I think I knew we were not coming back for a while. And adjusting to that is such a personal, everyone does it in their own way. Richard, I've been doing this for 50 years. I came, since acting and directing since 69. And I've never experienced anyone telling me, you have to stop now. And we had such wonderful momentum, Richard. We were making the show better. Like you said, third preview, Thursday night, we were working, rehearsing and changing. And the writers were, we were all so in sync. Forgive me for babbling, but I just miss it.
No, I love it. I have goosebumps because I know what it's like when you add the audience into the mix and you say, now let's change this. Now let's change these laughs. Now let's change this. And all of a sudden you're on this momentum of saying everything is becoming perfect. And then all of a sudden you're told you're done.
Yeah. Awful. Yeah. I mean, there's no sugar coating it,
Oh, I know there isn't. Yeah.
And
I also, good.
No, it doesn't compare to people getting sick and people losing loved ones. I mean, it's just, but in our own personal little world that we create and we live in and we live for, it was awful.
But I also want to ask you about the Music Man because I have 3 sets of tickets for the Music Man. I mean, everyone cannot wait for that show either. As of course, Mrs. Doubtfire, I couldn't wait to be there for opening night and catch up with all of you. But the Music Man, I mean, you're bringing Hugh Jackman back to Broadway again with Sutton Foster. I mean, you're working with Warren Carlyle. I mean, are you having meetings on the phone? Like, what's happening with the Music Man?
Yes, well, we started a lab. We did a short lab about a month and a half before we shut down where Sutton and Hugh were working, and I was reading through the script with them. We were getting to know each other. They were dancing a lot with Warren. Warren Carlyle was putting them through their paces, and you could feel the love for the show begin to grow, even in that small, early way, you know. So yes, we had gotten started on it, and you know, from the time we were shut down. When we were shut down, we didn't know when we would be back. So Scott Rudin and I and Warren and my associate Steve Edlund continued to work as though we were going to go into rehearsal in July. We hoped, who knows, you know, meaning we had regular Zoom calls where we would discuss the script page by page, what we were thinking about each page, in terms of scene, in terms of sets moving, in terms of transitions. We were, you know, we were taking it apart, and then we all realized that that wasn't going to happen, and we continued to work until we got through the script. And I know Santo Loquasto is working, you know, on the set and the costumes. So we're just hoping that it's deferred and nothing more than that, you know. But yeah, it's exciting. They're great. They're just champions, you know, and the material is so wonderful. And you know, Meredith Wilson, what can you say? It's a wonderful book and an extraordinary piece of music. And the way the two coexist and feed each other is, you know, fantastic. So I look forward to getting back to that.
Yeah, because you have such wonderful producers with all the shows you're working on. Kevin McCullum and all the people on Mrs. Doubtfire. And of course, Scott Rudin, of course, on The Music Man. I mean, just, I know they're such leaders of how they produce and how they collaborate with their, you know, creative teams. And I know that you has wanted to do The Music Man for so long. So I remember, I think he was singing, you know, the train number on one of the Tonight Show or whatever. I know it was the dream role for him. So it's all going to come back to you, but it must be so strange for you to have Zoom meetings unless you were having these before.
They're so unsatisfying. I mean, and you know what? For conversations about the script, you know, they work. They're okay. For conversations about the, but when it comes to working with actors and giving notes to actors and collaborating with actors, nah, it's just, it's hard. It's challenging, you know. It's better than nothing, but it's you know, it's been challenging. You know, I've been working on Love Letters and just, you know, with two magnificent actors, you know, Bryan Cranston and Sally Field. And there's something about this format that just can't replace me being able to stand with an actor off in a corner and say, what if this, or I think there may be a little too much of this, or this is taking a little too long, don't you think? Or what, you just can't have, it's just not the same, you know. You can't digitize it, that's all. You know?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this new series. I'm thrilled that Jeffrey Richards has put this together because, you know, it's a way for audiences to connect at least now, because this is the new now that we have at the moment until we find out how it's all going to happen. So at least you have that connection between incredible stage actors, you know, trying to put their medium through, you know, Zoom or however it all comes through. So let's talk about this series. It's called Spotlight on Plays. It's a series that's featured on Broadway's Best Shows, the new YouTube and Facebook channel. Let's talk about A.R. Gurney's Love Letters. Did you know the play really well beforehand? Like, how did you get involved to do this?
Jeffrey Richards called me up and said, would you like to do this? And I thought, yes, and no, what I said was, let me read the play. And that's what I'd never seen it. And I read it and fell in love with it and called him back and said, yes, let's do it, you know. And he was able to get Bryan Cranston and Sally Field both to do it. Yeah. And they're great. I mean, you know, it doesn't get better than the two of them. And not only in talent, but the work ethic is fantastic. And I've found that to be true of a lot of great ones that I've been lucky enough to work with. They're the ones that invariably want to work harder, invariably want to do it again, you know, invariably want to get it perfect. And so it's been fun. We rehearsed a little bit. We read in the Zoom format, and then we read through it a couple of times and recorded it. And I'm now in the process of working with Jim Glaub to edit it. And In fact, we're going to do a couple of pickups in about 3 hours, ahead of the Thursday stream.
Yeah. Had you worked with Brian or Sally before?
No, no, no. I exchanged hellos with both of them in different situations. Sally was rehearsing at 890 Broadway. I think she was doing Glass Menagerie when I was in there for Dolly, I think. And we caught each other in the hallway and said, hi, 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 and like that. And Brian, I ran into at a New Year's Eve party and said, "Oh, you're wonderful." And he said, "I hear no." It was all Happy New Year, Happy New Year. That was it. I didn't really know them. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're both stage animals. I
Yeah.
always say that people who started on stage have that work ethic that sometimes TV and film doesn't have, because it's all start and stop. But stage animals, it's in their DNA, it's in their muscle, it's all about the work.
That when it's right, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And yes, they're used to it. They expect it. That's the way they've grown up, so it's right. Yeah.
So let's just talk. So what did you love? I love this play. I've seen love letters over the years with everybody. I've seen it at benefits. I've seen many people do it, in New York and on the road. If I'm like on vacation somewhere and there was a production of it being done, I just love the intimacy of the relationship. What was it about you that attracted you to say, yes, I want to direct this?
Well, I love stories about people desperately trying to connect and failing to connect. Is what's so sad about this. Two people who were probably meant for each other, as someone, I think, can't remember it was quoted as, someone was a director, Johnny Tillinger maybe, said that this was a play about missed opportunity. And I think that's right. And I just think it's a great love story, Richard. It's got a wonderful it's 50 years of a relationship, that came close to igniting, but was at its most alive in these letters. When they were together, the time they spent actually together was disappointing, but the love that they were able to communicate to each other through letters was pretty astonishing. And that's a testament to Pete Gurney. I mean, what a piece of writing, So I just love these two characters, and they were funny. They were so funny. They were so funny, smart people, who verbally can joust, and they're really a great pair, So anyway.
So when you worked on this, like as a director with the two actors, with Brian and Sally, would you do read-throughs on Zoom and listen to each other? You would direct like you and I are talking now?
Exactly. And it was tricky because I knew I only had, you can only go for 3 hours like this, maybe, before you start to get weary, So I had to constantly weigh whether they're reading through with a note or a suggestion. I was constantly having to weigh the value of that against needing to get through to the end, So I do a little bit of, I'd stop occasionally, we did it over 2 days, I think maybe even 3. I think we rehearsed 2 days and then we shot over 2. And while we were doing it, as we got to know each other a little bit better, I realized that, I can stop them and say, this is dipping a little bit in the middle. You need to sustain your forward momentum. You need to keep going, So yes, it was stop and start, and a lot of it is in the editing, which was revelatory for me because this was conceived for two people sitting side by side on stage. That was the magic of it.
Yeah.
You had them in that 2-shot all evening. And lights didn't change. You just listened to them. And on the Zoom format, the side by side is not as effective as the single to single to single, so that when they do come side by side, it pay off to something. And it's much easier to control the pace of the piece.
I see a new way of you directing for a little while. That's really great, the way you just described how you're working.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
I have to ask you, Hello, Dolly was one of the most exciting productions. I mean, I literally saw, I think your production of Hello, Dolly, I think my husband and I saw 12 times. And I'll tell you, one of the most exciting things about seeing Dolly was just even just waiting to go into the Schubert Theater, it's the feeling you got when you used to go to the theater as a kid. Like when I used to go as a 12-year-old and my parents would take me in, I was so happy to turn the corner on like 44th Street or 45th Street and get caught up in the excitement. And there was something about the audience that was going to see Hello, Dolly. And then you walked into the Schubert Theater, where I have been hundreds of times, but never felt the magic that I've always felt magic in there and at the theater, but just there was a magic in that house and that production. And, you got to direct Bette Midler, David Hyde Pierce. I mean, Kate Baldwin, Gavin, all, Taylor, but then you got Bernadette Peters and you had Donna Murphy and then the tours. I mean, what did you enjoy the most about Dolly? I mean, this has to be like one of the biggest and best productions you've ever worked on.
Well, there's nothing I love more about my job than working with actors, period. Period. I mean, I appreciate and love the back and forth with the writers and the designers. It's critical, it's fun, but the in the room work with the actors is the most precious thing to me. And I got to do a lot of that with some pretty extraordinary talents. But even more to your question, Richard, this was a dream come true for me, personally, a dream come true. And I'm not speaking in a metaphoric sense. Yeah. I'm talking about when I was 17 and a sophomore at Dartmouth College, and I came into New York and I got standing room tickets at the St. James, and I stood at the back to watch Carol Channing.
Yeah.
And something happened to me in that evening. It's impossible to describe the level of joy and ecstasy. And so I went back again, stood in the same spot to see Ginger Rogers and Pearl Bailey. And every time I went, this extraordinary thing that you described coming into the Schubert happened to me as a kid. And wouldn't it be neat to do something like that? And so 50 years later or whatever,
yeah,
there was a lot of love. And look, once I gotta go back a little bit. It's the material, Richard. I can talk to you all night about how much fun it was and all these wonderful ideas we all had. Without the material, we ain't got nothing, And so that is the joy. I mean, you're given so much. You're given so much with the score and the book and the characters and just the savvy of it, the joy of it. Jerry Herman, Michael Stewart, Wilder. I mean, and Gower. Gower. Again, when those waiters jumped over the orchestra pit in St. James when I was a kid, I thought I died and gone to heaven. And then they did it again on the other side. Oh my God. So it was very satisfying for me in that regard, and that it was directly connected to what happened to me as a young kid standing in the back of the scene.
Yeah. And then, Dolly welcomed Bette Midler back to Broadway. This was a really, really big deal. And, you talk about professionals who, like you said, it's all about the work ethic. What did you enjoy the most about working with Bette on this, besides everybody else?
She was relentless.
Yeah.
She was relentless, and she was game, and she was not precious, and she was a great company member, and now we're talking about a woman who's used to running the show, in her concerts, etc. It's a responsibility to do all of that. Well, in this situation, she didn't have to do that part of it. All she had to do was Dolly, and play with her Horace, David Hyde Pierce, and just bring that to life. So she trusted me. So that's part of what made it so special. She trusted me.
Yeah. I remember talking to Kate Baldwin, and Kate said, I worked with many directors, but working with Jerry Zaks was so extra special because I think it was the hat shop scene. She said, you would just hone these incredible comedy bits. And she said she had never worked with someone because she said, you're such a genius, which you are, at comedy. And you honed these things and made them all so natural that they just became these incredible laughs out of these incredible moments.
I've always loved her.
Yeah.
No, I'm playing, but I do actually. I love her. Yeah, it was a lot. I am crazy about getting something just right.
Yeah.
And comedy is about music, and it's about life and death stakes, the kind that I like. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, in that hat shop, you know, those people's lives were at stake, and when
Yeah.
your lives are when your life is at stake, you will do crazy things to keep safe. You will do unexpected things to save your life. And so discovering what those were for each of the characters was a lot of fun. And I think that's what she's talking about.
Yeah. Like I said, if someone said to me, what were your top 10? What were your top 5? I would say Dolly is in my top 3, just so you know, of anything I've ever seen. And I've been going to the theater since my parents have taken me since I was 8 years old. So I have seen some really great stuff. But like I said, we kept going back to the Schubert Theater to see that and just have an experience that, you know, was one of those changing things, like you said, when you were 17, going to see the original production at the St. James.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there were so many people who were going to make their Broadway debuts this season, of course, in your show too. And, you know, it's going to come back. But would you just talk about what you remember about your Broadway debut? Was it Grease?
I think it was.
Yeah, yeah.
It was. It had to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. Oh,
Because it only happens once.
yeah. It's beyond thrilling. It's beyond. I mean, I came to New York to be an actor, and that's what I did between 69 and 79 or 80, you know, and that's all I ever wanted, and I loved it. And so, and I grew up a secret fan of the Grease style music. I loved it. I lived it. I sang it to myself, you know. So I really wanted to be in this show, and I got cast in the national company, and it was the first national tour, and it was one of the best things ever. And fast forward 10 months, I spent 10 glorious months on the road with the first national tour, and then the call came that the role was open in New York, and did I want to come in to do it? It was the great Timothy Myers who I think created the role, and I was coming in to take over, and you know, it doesn't hit you. You know, with Grease, you'd get ready, get into makeup, and you get your hair just right, and you put the leather jacket on, and you get the swagger. Then you go downstairs and you maybe play a little poker with the crew, you know, and you're in the meet. Yes, not the first night, but that was part of the regular routine. And then you'd hear Places, and you'd play the last hand to try to get one more pot in, and then you'd hear Stand By, and you would run up from the table, up the stairs, onto stage, behind the curtain. And it was in that moment, and my first performance, that it hit me that, you know, I'm on Broadway. I'm doing what for me has always been the ultimate. And it was great. It was very satisfying. One of the greatest things about being on Broadway, Grease, was it gave my father a chance to walk up and down the street under the marquee and tell people that his boy was in the show. That's he missed my directing stuff, but he did miss that. Yeah.
Because that first national tour, John Travolta was in that, Judy Kaye. Weren't they all on the national tour with you?
Yeah, Michael Lembeck, Mary Lou Henner. I mean, Jeff Conaway, God bless him, you know.
Yeah.
Wonderful people. And oh yeah, and we had great adventures. And of course we thought we were the cat's whiskers, you know, or the whatever we thought
you were. The cat you were.
Oh, we were just
Grease was the show to be in.
I'm telling you, and we were sold out. People would scream and cheer, and again, yeah, it was just great joy and wonderful people. Johnny Travolta. Just a brief story. After I was cast in the national tour, I went down to the Broadway company to stand in the back, so I could tell someone that I was going to be doing it. I was bursting. I'm in the standing room. Lights come up at intermission. I turn to a young kid and I say, "Great show, huh?" He says, "Yeah." I say, "I'm going to be in it." He says, "Me too." It was John Travolta, age 18.
Yeah.
Age 18. So yeah. And anyway, yes, I've stayed very friendly with a lot of those people because we were in the trenches together.
Yeah.
So.
No, because I went to see Grease all the time. So I have all my playbills with all of you, with John Travolta. I saw Richard Gere when I think he went in as Sonny first, and then Duty before he went over to London to play, you know, all these great people.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, Mary Lou had really, really great. But one of my other questions for you is, what made you move from being an actor to a director? What was that transition for you?
It was an accident. I was acting, very happy acting, and someone at the Ensemble Studio Theater suggested I direct a little workshop of something. And I thought, well, okay. I read the play, it made me laugh out loud. and I actually staged a very, very bare bones little production of The Soft Touch by Neil Cuthbert, and it went and people came and laughed hard. So that was the beginning of it. And then when I directed Sister Mary Ignatius Explains It All for You, at first at the Ensemble Studio and then at the West Side Arts in 79 or something like 980. All of a sudden, I used to refer to myself as an actor whose avocation was directing. And with that show, it tipped the other way. And I began to get, the great thing about directing, Richard, is it doesn't matter what you look like, does it? At all, at all. It's how tall you are or anything. It's about what you can do with a script and a bunch of actors. It's really, that's what it's about. So, so that's how it happened, sort of accidentally, and I just fell in love with it, and it appealed to the control freak inside of me. I just love being responsible for all the pieces.
Do you miss acting?
No, no. The terror of forgetting my lines would kill me. I promise you, if I had to learn lines and do them again, even in Greece back in 1973 or 2, something like that, every night I'd repeat the lyrics to Grease Lightning every night. I go through it all every night. Same with Tintypes. It just the terror of forgetting. So I don't miss that. I love being on stage. I loved it. I loved the being in control of everything, and it was very deeply felt.
Yeah. Well, you're an actor's director. Everybody who I've spoken to over the years who have worked with you, they said they love being in the room with Jerry Zaks because he's an actor's director. So we have a lot of actors that watch my show of all ages. So when you're in an audition room, what do you look for? Because, no one ever knows when they go into that door what anybody's looking for really, unless, of course, you're a star or something else. But what do you look for actors in an audition room?
It's preparation. How hard have they prepared? When someone comes in having learned the material, that counts for me. It means that they want it badly enough to learn the material, assuming they've had time to learn it. And then it becomes very subjective. It's just about, who do I believe? Who makes me want to listen to them? With vocally, when we're talking about singing voice, there's, beautiful sounds and there's different kinds of sounds. And, someone can sing in a different language and make you cry because the beauty of their son. Kate Baldwin, Kate Baldwin can sing anything and I will weep. It just is a fact, because of the sheer beauty of it. Well, that's not anything that someone can control except by working on their craft. I'm really looking for someone whose company I like in it for the length of an audition. I want someone who can get my attention.
Beautiful.
So many people, and what I do, my part of that is making sure that no actor is ever embarrassed in an audition or in a rehearsal, because I remember what it was like to be embarrassed 3 or 4 times in my acting career, and I vowed to try never, now occasionally I've slipped, but it's critically important that actors are never embarrassed in a rehearsal room by neither me or other actors. So I just monitor that. But you're asking about auditions. It's the person who comes in really prepared, whose company I want to be in, and who I am listening to the hardest, that I want to see again. Then I want to see if they can repeat it. I want to see if they can repeat it, which is why I'll have a call back if it's someone I don't know.
That's beautiful. Listen, I want to thank you so much. I have known you since, like I said, I've known you a lot of years, my friend. I have caught you on every single carpet. But like I said, I saw you in all these shows. I saw you in Grease. I saw you in Tintypes. I saw you in Figaro. I saw you do all that magic when we were all dreaming of doing something in this business and looked up to someone like you before you started directing, just so you know that.
Thank you.
And I just want to close things out. So I want to thank you for joining me. And for everyone, tune in tonight at 8 p.m. for the live stream of A.R. Gurney's Love Letters, starring Bryan Cranston and Sally Field, directed by Jerry Zaks, on the Broadway Best Show channel on YouTube and Facebook. I want to give a big shout out to Jeffrey Richards for putting this all together with Jim Glaub and Jacob Sorokin Porter. I think this is so important as we're waiting to go back into sitting in a theater again as an audience, how it should be. But it's wonderful to have something like this to watch. So Jerry, thank you from the bottom of my heart, my friend. I know you have to go to rehearsal and Zoom meetings and everything else, but I can't wait to see you in, person to person, which will be very soon at Mrs. Doubtfire and of course at the Music Man. Jerry, take care, my friend.
Thank you, and stay well, Richard.